This morning we're going to be making in my kitchen basic fudge brownies. This is a very easy recipe and I will show you the ingredients and we will bake it together. I appreciate all the people that have joined me on Facebook, all my new members, and I appreciate everybody who's followed me on the YouTube channel. I want to give a shout out to my editor and to my new film crew that we have. So thanks everybody for making this work. Here we are. So in the kitchen today we're going to be making, as mentioned, basic fudge brownie recipe. It's going to be made into an 8 by 8 inch cake pan. So it's going to be quite small, probably feed about 2 to 4 people. But remember, this show is a basic learning and cooking show, so we can see if anything else needs to be added to that. There will be a list on my Facebook page of some additional ingredients you can add to make your fudge brownie better or more liking to your taste. So we're going to start this morning with our butter and melting it in the microwave, and we're going to be adding that to future ingredients. Here we have our half a cup of butter, as you can see on the measuring there, and we're going to be melting that into the microwave. So then we have a microwave safe cup here, and we will be adding this to the bowl. Let's put this in the microwave for 1 minute. Okay, this is what the butter looks like, melted, and we're going to be adding that to our main bowl here. Don't forget to use your spoonula to get out all the extra butter. Very good. So this recipe next calls for half a cup of unsweetened chocolate. Now you can use the one I use, which is 100% cacao powder. It comes in different forms. The liquid form, you can use the actual chocolate chips and melt them. I'm going to be using the powder. And also there's different kinds of dark chocolate, milk chocolate, or you can even try to use a white chocolate. But for this recipe, we'll be using that. So let us measure out half a cup of chocolate. I will be using a dry measuring cup for this. And now we will put that into the bowl. Next on the recipe, it will be using 1 cup of sugar. So let's get that. We'll also be using a dry measuring cup for this. Sometimes you don't have measuring cups that are the right size for the ingredient that you want. So you can fudge a little. You don't have to have it exact. You can look inside on the lines on the measuring cup there, and you can see 3/4, half, or 1/4. So you can use different measuring cups to work for one item. All right, let's look into the bowl now and see what we have. All right, let's take our spoonula and start stirring. Be sure to incorporate all the melted butter in with the chocolate and scrape the bottoms to make sure that you get all of that. It smells very chocolatey. This recipe is very easy. It's great for kids to help, and you can also freeze these brownies for a future use. They slice very well frozen. Let's scrape off our spoonula and go on to the next ingredient. Now would be a good time to wash your hands in between using different ingredients. Be sure and keep your hands clean with everything that's going on these days in the world. We want to keep a safe and healthy kitchen. The next ingredient on the recipe calls for 2 eggs. These eggs should be room temperature. Cold ingredients like cold eggs make the batter cold, but room temperature helps it to stay at the right temperature when you put it into the baking. So now we're going to put in 2 eggs. We're going to add them one at a time and beat them. Let's use a whisk for this. Does anybody have a whisk in their kitchen? It doesn't matter if it's metal or plastic, but it works good for whipping in the eggs. Let's look into the bowl and watch the eggs go in. Can you see the consistency is starting to be thicker? And that's what you want. Let's stop and scrape down the sides. The consistency is starting to look good. Now, it calls for 1 teaspoon vanilla, and let's try to use the same trick that I've taught you from each recipe that we've done and each episode to use the top of the cap as a teaspoon. 1 teaspoon vanilla. Shake it up before you put it in. So now the recipe calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but if you're using salted butter, please omit this from the recipe. We don't need any extra salt, and the butter has it incorporated in it. Let's stir in our vanilla. This recipe is almost done. I told you it was going to be a quick one. The only thing left is 1/2 cup of flour. So we'll take the flour, aerate it, and then we'll put it into the bowl and mix. Now we will use our 1/2 cup measuring cup for 1/2 cup flour. Remember to aerate the flour with your spoon. It's okay if you're a little messy. We've learned that in the past. Baking is fun. It's not about being clingy, or it's about getting proper measuring techniques. And how's that look? Looks like we could use a little more. Sometimes people eyeball it, but we're not going to do that in this recipe. That looks good to me. And into the bowl. All right, let's stir in our flour for our last ingredient and see how it looks like when we're done. Now, please do not overmix. Overmixing can cause a fudge brownie to have a more cake-like consistency. So the proper way to fold in the ingredients would be right away with a spoon, and then not to overmix. The way I'm mixing now is called folding. Take it up the side, put it into the middle. Take it up to the side, put it into the middle. And that looks good to me. If I counted, that was about 20 stirs. So by around then, it should be done. Scrape the sides. And now we're ready to put it into our pan. This is an 8x8 cake pan. This is the cake pan we're going to be using to put our batter in to bake our fudge brownies today. Now there are 2 ways we can put the brownie mix in. We can cover the actual dish with foil up onto the sides so that the brownies do not stick, or we can spray them with a nonstick spray and flour them. So those are 2 options that you can use. I'm going to be using the Pam nonstick spray and the flour. Let's watch how I do that. A trick to getting a nonstick brownie is to make sure the sides of the dish are covered with flour and or Pam spray. So let's see how we can do that. We're going to be turning and tapping as we get the flour coated onto the pan. And with the excess, we will take care of that and throw it away. Here's the finished product. Now let's put our batter in. Looks chocolatey so far. It's gonna be good. Be sure to get everything out of the bowl. This utensil we've never used before in our baking show. It is a spreader, and the spreader works good for brownies. If you find something that is easier for you to use, that gets into the corners, you might have another one, but I like to use this one. It's kind of the shape of a butter knife, but it's longer and has a rounded edge that gets into the corners. So let's use that. That worked out good. Now, another trick that I'm going to tell you is before we put it into the oven, when you put batter into cake pans, it's best to pound them on a hard surface to get any air bubbles out before you put them into the oven. So here's our finished product. Let's tap it to make sure all of our air bubbles are out. Now this time is when you could add extra ingredients on the top. Maybe you'd like to put some chocolate chips or some nuts or raisins, but this would be the time to add these extra ingredients into the batter before we put it into the oven. And let's go preheat our oven now for 350 degrees. The oven's ready, so let's put it in at 350 for 20 to 22 minutes. Please don't over bake. It might look soft in the middle, but that's okay. Okay, here goes. See you in 20 minutes. Okay, they're done. Let's take them out of the oven and check it out. Ooh. Now we're going to put it on a board and we're going to let it cool for 30 minutes. Looks like I didn't overbake it. I did exactly the 20 minutes. If we put our finger touch to it, as you can see, it bounces back a little, which is good. But remember, they're supposed to be chewy and soft in the center. So if yours is a little soft, it's okay. When it cools, it'll be great. See you in 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes. Let's look at our brownies. Now this recipe, of course, calls for the 8x8 pan. But remember, you can double it and make it into a 9x13 pan for a larger family. Let's cut into it and see what the inside looks like. Very fudgy interior and a crackly crust. It's a winner! We did it! Now let's taste it. So here we are with our brownie. As you can see on the table here, I did dust mine with a little chocolate, made a little bit nicer looking. And I put on mine whipped cream and some caramel sauce to jazz it up a little bit. Now let's try it. Soft in the middle. It's so good. As you can see, the consistency, look at that fudginess in there. Oh boy. And it's so good, I'm going to wash it down with a glass of milk. Well, that's it. That was episode number 9. Yep, 9 already. Basic fudge brownies. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope your brownies turn out as good as mine did. Please post some pictures on my Facebook page, Leslie's Baking Basics, and ask to join the group to find the recipe and pictures. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You have to have a Gmail account, but as soon as you do, when the new video comes up, it'll let you know, and you can watch it along with me. So, from my kitchen to yours, next time we are going to have a surprise guest, my first guest, and we'll be making the cookies oatmeal scotchies. So that'll be fun for episode 10. And until then, from From my kitchen to yours, I make it, you bake it.